Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Run It Back, the show where we try to get things right the second time. In today's episode, we're going to be going over my day 2 draft from the Arena Open this last weekend. Unfortunately, as you can see, we went 2-2 in the draft. Unfortunately, in our very first round, we went up against somebody who had the nuts deck with all kinds of bombs. And then in round 4, when we were trying to play our very last game, just things didn't come together for us. Our opponent had that one little bit of extra card advantage. We ran out of a bit of gas and unfortunately did not make it there. But the two matches in between were pretty simple, pretty easy, and we got things done there. So unfortunately, one step too short for us on the Arena Open. But we'll dive into the deck and draft now. As we open up Pack 1 Pick 1, we see a couple of big things going on here. Baker's Bane Duo being the only green card is a very good green card, but it's the only one. We also see things like Nettle Guard, happy to see that one, Brazen Collector, Hazel's Nocturne, even Otterball Antics. If I'm going to be in blue, Otterball Antics does play really well, but Coiling Rebirth, one of the biggest and best splash bombs in the format as far as getting things back. So if you do get something as depicted like a Rottenmouth Viper or any of the Calamities or anything with good ETB effects, even something like a Life Creed duo or a Glide Dive duo. There's lots of things that just sort of work well as 1/1s in the format. So Coiling Rebirth is a good open-ended one. It does sort of wax and wane a little bit as you have some removal spells like Early Winter. This is what happened in one of our rounds where somebody ended up playing 4 Early Winters, and so our Coiling Rebirth was dead in game 1. We ended up siding it out there. Pack 1, Pick 2, we did follow things up with a Thoughtstalker Warlock. We see a Coruscation Mage, which kind of plays well in that Otters. We also see a Take Out the Trash, which is probably the second best card in the pack, along with the Thoughtstalker Warlock. Those are the best two, I think, this Take Out the Trash and the Warlock. Seeing as we already have a black card, and it's an incredible one to hit with that Coiling Rebirth, I figured we'd go ahead and take the Warlock and stick in black. We also see a Tidecaller Mentor, which is a very good splashing card here. But a whole lot of kind of middling cards. Waterspout Wardens, Starlit, Soothsayer, Skyskipper Duo, Bravekin Duo. A lot of sort of just middling cards I'm not too thrilled with. Hopefully we can get something good out of this pack. In Pack 1, Pick 3, there's a lot of things we could have done here. Mind Whisker is certainly one of them. I didn't want to go into blue-black. I didn't think it was where we wanted to be at. Flame Cash Gecko played well into the Lizard strategy. Cindering Cutthroat and Steam Path Charger would have been fine as good wheels, but we also see things like the Dire Downdraft, Tree Guard Duo. This felt like there was lots of good cards. If we ended in Bats, Sonar Strike would have been fine. But of all these cards, I thought Bandit's Talent would play well. It plays well with the Thoughtstalker Warlock, and I thought this would be something that helped keep us in card advantage, and more than anything else, keep us open. I'm happy to see a Bandit's Talent here. Running it back in my brain, Mind Whisker was probably the pick. This is something that plays really well with the Coiling Rebirth. It helps with card selection, let alone card advantage, and then eventually can become a win con. Pack 1, Pick 4, we were given a Wix Patrol, and this sort of thing also suggests that Mind Whisker might be what we want to be, but unfortunately we didn't know this was coming. Wix Patrol, incredible for Coiling Rebirth, incredible because if it does get milled or you mill other things with the Coiling Rebirth, that's fine. Patchwork Banner, is a good one, but nothing, we don't know if we're in lizards or rats or whatever we are. We just know we're in black right now. Light Shell Duo, a good one maybe on the wheel. A Moonrise Cleric, also a good one potentially on the wheel, even like Head of the Homestead, but realistically that one's not coming back. Pack 1, Pick 5, we see a Storm Chaser's Talent still here, an Agate Blade Assassin. There's a lot of just sort of meh cards. Kindle Spark Duo, Might of the Meek, and War Squeak are all sort of meh. Don't much care for those. Starforged Sword, I'm not really playing this unless I'm in like super heavy Tramplers out of like red-green. Thistledown Players is fine, but not really in white-black. Agate Blade Assassin is fine in Bats, but nah. I thought Storm Chaser's Talent had a bigger upside, especially if we ended up getting a couple of removal spells. That's one of the best things to be getting back with said Storm Chaser's Talent. So sort of looking back on things, I still think we take Coiling Rebirth right away, but seeing Otterball Antics is good. Hazel's Nocturne is good. Thoughtstalker Warlock is still better, I think, than the Storm Chaser's Talent in this moment, but like that would have been a fine one to also pick up. Mind Whisker is the card that we really wish we had here. Mind Whiskers would be a big one. Wix Patrol, now we see Storm Chaser's Talent. And moving on to Pack 1, Pick 6, we do get this Glide Dive Duo, which again plays really well with the Coiling Rebirth. Now we've got a pretty high curve right now, which like Storm Chaser's Talent, counts as 4 and 6 mana. We've got Coiling Rebirth on 5, Wix Patrol on 6. So we're going to want to make sure we get some good, cheap early removal spells. Now, Pack 1, Pick 7, we see quite a few blue cards that we could move into. I don't think these red cards are where we want to be at, but there's about 4 different blue cards we could take. Runaway Together, not really good, but it does play well with things like Thoughtstalker Warlock. Dire Downdraft is the one we do take because it was the most, cheap Usually this is 3 mana, whereas Spelljar is 4, plus this one also takes care of things in the battlefield. Spelljar being more of a card advantage spell, but we also have Bandit's Talent and Thoughtstalker Warlock. These things in Storm Chaser's Talent, these things all sort of already generate card advantage. Another thing to think about is Thoughtshucker. We talked about how we have a lot of expensive drops. Bringing in like a 2 mana 1/3 that eventually turns into a 2 mana 1/4 is reasonable. I think this card is like not terribly strong, but if there is a deck for it, it is in Rats, and this kind of just works. So Thoughtshucker definitely a thought here, but I think the Dire Downdraft is just fine. Pack 1, pick 8, we're looking at Gossip's Talent, which I really suggested maybe over the, in order to blink the Thoughtstalker Warlock. Somebody else mentioned a Dire Sight, which I thought would be fine because that also helps generate that card advantage there. But the losing 2 life is a big deal in a deck like this where you're really sort of on the back foot early. And so we just took the Lily-Pad Village, which is sort of free equity because, a lot of the times it's going to be casting a lot of your spells. And then if you ever do get some Surveil out of it, that's huge in the Rats deck. Pack 1, pick 9 on the wheel. We looked at a Light Shell Duo or a Hazel's Nocturne. These are both really big things to kind of consider. I think you do want to be playing one or more Light Shell Duos in here. I think they play really well in that blue-black strategy, but I don't think you want to play like 4. And so this early in the draft, Hazel's Nocturne is likely to be something that other people want to be picking up. Light Shell Duo is something that people are going to be passing, so I'm hoping we can pick up a Light Shell Duo or 2 later. Pack 1, pick 10, we did see a Tidecaller Mentor, wheeling along amongst other blue and black cards, which are all sort of medium, but definitely playable. Tidecaller Mentor, obviously the best one of these, so we just snapped it up, but this is a good sign for us, saying that we're in the right seat. Pack 1, pick 11, we were either on Starlit Soothsayer or Mind Spiral. We took the Mind Spiral just because I think it was a significantly bigger impact card than we wanted, but, Starlit Soothsayer would have been fine. A Light Shell Duo did come around in Pack 1, pick 12, and then we ended on a Kindle Spark Duo. Moving into Pack 2, pick 1, we opened up a very good card in this Azure Beastbinder. This locks down other creatures. We even were able to end up locking down a Patchwork Banner, which ended up removing the +1/+1 ability and the mana ability, so that worked out pretty well. Outside of that, we do see like a Galewind Moose. This Moonstone Harbinger is fine, and a Psychic Whirl is something that we can consider with a Thoughtstalker Warlock along with the Bandit's Talent. Pack 2, pick 2. Not a whole lot here for us. I don't think Portent of Calamity is where we want to be at, even though we do have 2 talents, which is a big deal, plus a couple instants and sorceries, and then it also puts some creatures and things in the graveyard for our Coiling Rebirth, so that would be something to consider with this Portent of Calamity, but I don't think it's that strong, so I wouldn't really pick it up here. Do see a Brazen Collector very good, Agate Assault very good, but in Pack 2, pick 2, these aren't really signals that we're that worried about, so we just took the Mudflat Village, which again is sort of free equity over your first swamp. Pack 2, pick 3, we saw an Heirloom Epic, which is big. We also see a Saver here, which is the obvious pick, I think. Uncharted Haven could be something we might want to pick up just for any big splashes. If we get something like a Yigra or something like that, those are things that we want to be splashing in this deck. But it's really tough to turn down a Saver. This is one of the best commons in the set, already in our colors. Go and just take the good card here. Pack 2, pick 4, we're looking at a second Hazel's Nocturne, a Sugar Coat, maybe a Ravine Raider, a Fountain Port Bell. A lot of these things are fine. I don't think I'm playing just straight Divination in this deck. I'd rather play a second Hazel's Nocturne. But if you look at our creatures, we don't have that many. We have this Warlock, the Mentor, a Duo, and then like a Wix Patrol. I got 5 creatures so far, so I was a little concerned by making sure we had enough creatures for this Hazel Nocturne to get some value out of it. And the Sugar Coat is just pretty much a removal spell. Now, it does turn them into food, which is kind of a big deal because it gains them 3 life, or there's other synergies like Forage that could be bad, but in general, I think just 3 mana in blue to, kill something is pretty darn good. Pack 2, pick 5, we were past a Wick, which, obviously we really want something like this Persistent Marshstalker or even like a Shore Up is fine, but, we got Rats, so let's just get some Snails, and now we really want to prioritize a couple of fixings to put, get a Mountain, so that way we might be able to sacrifice said Snail and draw a couple extra cards. Pack 2, pick 6, not a whole lot here for us. We could take our second Light Shell Duo, but I wasn't really impressed with any of these cards. Lily Splash Mentor is incredible, and I thought was something that may be worth the splash if people kept passing a couple of good frogs or enough fixing. That Lily Splash Mentor definitely would be worth it, along with things like the Thoughtstalker Warlock, the Tidecaller Mentor, the Wix Patrol, the Glide Dive Duo. We had some very good blinkable cards. Pack 2, pick 7, we were looking at things like Scales of Shale, Shore Up, or Mind Drill Assailant. In hindsight, I think I wanted this Mind Drill Assailant because a 4 mana 5/5 is huge, and in this deck, it's pretty easy to pull off. I think that that's one of the commons that I kind of wish I had. I did pick a Shore Up because I thought I wanted to protect things like my Wick, as well as like my Flyer and those sorts of things, and I did play them, but I was able to pick one up later, and I thought, in hindsight, I wanted this Mind Drill Assailant. Pack 2, pick 8, we picked up a Dire Downdraft. I think that's fine. A Polywallop is another one here that is, going around pretty late on the table. If we had any better fixing, I might have suggested that one as well. But Dire Downdraft sort of sticks with the deck that we have. A Psychic Whirl over the Gossip's Talent. I really considered this Gossip's Talent, but I just thought that I was convinced pretty early on that the 8 total mana it takes in order to get to the last thing was just too much, and we didn't have enough oomph to get there. Now, granted, we didn't play the Psychic Whirl in the exception of one game 3 during our run, so maybe this Gossip's Talent would have played a little better with things like Thoughtstalker Warlock and the Tidecaller Mentor. The other thing to think about is like whenever a creature comes into play, you get to surveil one, which is kind of a big deal. It's a little bit of a Mind Whisker on your own, so that helps with the threshold wherever you need it. So I maybe running it back, I probably would take this one. I don't know if it would even make our deck, but I probably would take it here. We did end up getting the Portent of Calamity, which could make our deck. We probably pick up an artifact or two, maybe, God forbid, a Planeswalker, a Coruscation Mage, a Tempest Angler, and then we do end up picking up a Shore Up here, which again suggests that we should have taken that Mind Drill Assailant earlier. Pack 3, pick 1. We do see things like Mind Whisker, Downwind Ambusher, another Saver, but I think the Mind Whisker in pack 1 that we missed is certainly something we want to be playing here, so we grabbed it and sort of wish we had them both. Pack 3, pick 2. This was really tough. I was thinking about a Huskbursker Swarm. I was thinking about a Hidden Grotto, but if you look down here, we don't have any creatures on 2 with the exception of this Azure Beastbinder, which doesn't really block very well, so I wanted to end up getting something out there early on that was just able to sort of trade off with a random 2-drop. And Bonebind Orator also being something that you can do later in the game to get back your Glide Dive Duo, get back your Wick, your Tidecaller Mentor, or whatever have you. Like, it was pretty good. I really liked it. Pack 3, pick 3, not a lot for us here with the exception of one Shining Star here in Tidecaller Mentor. We could have picked an Uncharted Haven, but this card was significantly better than a lot of the other things that we had. Unfortunately, we did not draw very many Mentors throughout the games, and so maybe if we had drawn more of them, then that might have helped us get those last few wins. But I really like this 3 mana 3/3 on turn 3. It's great because of the menace. Later on in the game, it's great because then you can start bouncing things. Or in general, it's great. Pack 3, pick 4, I saw a Hired Claw, which is certainly worth a splash sometimes. I didn't think it was worth it here. We do see a couple other things, and then Night Whirl Hermit, I'm not huge on that one. Early Winter's a little expensive for my taste, and I wanted a red source here for the Wick, so I grabbed this Uncharted Haven. It mainly is a blue-black land, but if everything worked out, we could play it on red and still activate our Wick. We saw a Kitsa in Pack 3, pick 5, which I thought was pretty huge. We did see a Fountainport Bell and a Hidden Grotto, but Kitsa being just a looter is great for our Threshold package. And then also late in match 3, we were able to copy up a Hazel's Nocturne, and then we also copied a Dire Downfall or a Dire Downdraft after attacking, which really allowed us to get in for lethal. So, Kitsa is fine to not very good until it's extremely good and wins you the game. So I usually take this every time. Really happy to see it here. Pack 3, pick 6. A lot of sort of medium cards that I wasn't really overly thrilled with. Pearl of Wisdom, the third Dire Downdraft, a Spelljar I don't think we're playing very often. Portent of Calamity, we're already not playing the first ones. This Light Shell Dew I thought could come in here and just kind of make sure that we got more creatures on the battlefield. We did get a Calamitous Tide late in the draft, which I was really happy with. We did play this. Unfortunately, the worst point in our draft was when somebody used the Cruel Claws Heist to pull it out of our hands and then cast this on us later. But we were able to use our Storm Chaser's talent to then also bring it back after they had cast it to win the game later. So it was pretty brutal to have it played against, and it won us the game when we played it. So very reasonable pick late in the draft. We did take a Thought Shucker here early. We did play this Thought Shucker, and it did get sided out a couple of times. But in game 1 on the play or draw in the dark, I felt really happy to have this thing just sort of early on in the games. Bonebind Orator I think is good, and another one that we ended up playing, but I did like that Thought Shucker pick. A Huskburster Swarm did come back to us, which I was happy to see. We did play it. We also cited this one out because if there were some, especially that one guy that ended up having 4 early winters, this thing was just too much mana, but a lot of the times it actually played really well with the Wix Patrol, meaning that Wix Patrol could kill just about anything on the battlefield. We did pick up another Tempest Angler, a Nightwhirl Hermit, and then ended with a final Dire Downdraft. Taking a look at the deck, there's a couple of things in the sideboard I was really happy to have. This Bandit's Talent and Psychic Whirl were a little package that was cut kind of as our 24th and 25th cards, but it came in a number of different times, usually over the Huskburster Swarm and maybe the Thought Shucker, because these are things that kind of don't play very well as the game goes along, whereas these do play very well as the game goes along. Mind Spiral, also one that came in that scenario over Light Shell Duo sometimes. The third Dire Downdraft rarely made it in, but I thought it was fine to come in. We also brought in the Shore Up if like Psychic Whirl and Bandit's Talent weren't good. We brought in 2 Shore Ups against the guy playing 4 Early Winters because they're paying 5 mana, we paid 1 mana, and we got to sort of counter that spell. That's fine. We never really got there on the Portent of Calamity because as I end up sorting by types, can I sort by types? Maybe not. But as I separate out creatures and sort by mana value, you can see here that we've got a couple instants and sorceries. We've got a couple of enchantments, but mainly like creatures and lands. So in order for Portent of Calamity to really be any good, we have to hit 2 different columns here of either the enchantments, the sorceries, or the instants, and I just didn't think there was enough. I wanted also like an artifact or 2, or maybe like some more talents or whatever to really make the Portent of Calamity go. And in general, if this is just like pay 5 mana at sorcery speed and draw 2 cards, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So you know, I was generally pretty happy with the draft. I thought we were in the right seat. I kind of wish we took that Mind Whisker early on over whatever we took, I think, like right away. I think in pack 3. Pack 1, pick 3, we did not take a Mind Whisker, and I think we took the Bandit's Talent, and as you can see, the Bandit's Talent had a reasonable but regulated to the sideboard deck, whereas we had a second Mind Whisker here that could really shut down some aggressive strategies pretty quickly, plus also help find all our other stuff. So 2-2 was fine, not exactly where we were at, and I guess we'll go ahead and give it a try next time. If you want to have your deck reviewed on Run It Back, feel free to send me an email at runitbackmtg@gmail.com or a message in the Discord with the 17 lands data, so happy to take a look. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.